Jessica saw you at the restaurant bar, planning a trip with another woman. Oh, I see. So what? Even when caught cheating, my husband Brian wouldn't drop his defiant attitude. In that moment, everything we had built over 17 years fell apart. In this day and age, I was a full-time homemaker, and we were living with his parents. Just like every other year, I had given up the job I loved at a publishing company where I felt fulfilled. Now, I spent half of the week taking my parents to the hospital and adjusting meals according to everyone's schedule. I was living a life much like a housemaid after getting married. I had no time for myself. The only place I could relax was in our bedroom, even in this spacious house. Despite all this, I had chosen this life because I wanted to be with my husband. The option of leaving never crossed my mind. So when my unfaithful husband said, "We can get a divorce," I was at a loss for words, feeling more amazed than angry. This is the story of me, Nicole Richie, turning 45 this year, leaving my husband Brian, with whom I lived for 17 years, and starting my life from scratch. It all started 3 months ago on the 23rd. That day was payday for him, who worked at an electronics manufacturer. Usually, his salary would be deposited into our joint account. I would use that money to pay our monthly bills and give him an allowance in the evening. However, 3 months ago, his salary wasn't deposited into our joint account. I thought there must have been some technical glitch, so when he got home in the evening, I asked him about it. "What do you mean you changed the deposit account without saying anything to me?" He had switched the account to his personal one. "But what about our payments? These bills are due on the 25th. I couldn't keep up with the sudden change and just thought of the immediate concern. Without thinking, he said, "Just let me know how much you need, and I'll transfer that amount into the joint account." He said this while taking off his suit with his back turned to me. He wouldn't even look me in the eyes. "So why did you change it?" I couldn't think of any reason for this. In the 17 years we'd been together, we had never changed the account. We were saving in our joint account, so it wouldn't be a problem if his transfer was late. It's not like our bills would fall behind. Maybe I didn't need to press the issue, but I couldn't help wondering. Why didn't he trust me with our finances? Did I do something wrong? I didn't remember overspending, but I thought maybe I had unknowingly upset him. If so, I needed to apologize. That's what I thought when I asked him, but he seemed to think I was blaming him. He threw his freshly removed shirt onto the couch and glared at me. "It's my hard-earned money, isn't it?" "Yes, it is. But why do I need your permission to use it?" I couldn't understand his words. I'd been giving him a $800 allowance every month, but that was just a temporary arrangement. If his expenses piled up, I would give him more. I asked him what he spent his money on, but I never refused to give him more when he needed it. As a stay-at-home wife, there were times when I asked if I could buy something I wanted, but the reverse never happened. "I don't need dinner today." "But I already prepared it." "Never mind, I'll eat out." He got bent out of shape, grabbed his car keys, and went out again. He had seemed strange for the past 17 years, but we never had issues over money. Suddenly, he starts saying it's his money. While cleaning up the food I had prepared, I was upset at my husband's selfish actions. I was frustrated that, despite having food at home, he chose to eat out anyway. Now he was in charge of the finances. From that moment, he began eating out every night and coming home late at night after I fell asleep. Also, the number of days he told me he was staying at work overnight increased. The fight had completely escalated. Even when we were together, we didn't talk more than necessary. As time passed, it was hard to find a chance to make up, and I started blaming myself. We'd never had a fight last this long before. It was a minor issue that he changed the bank account without consulting me. If he wants to manage the finances, that's fine. After about 3 weeks of awkwardness, I began to reconsider things. Then one day, I received a message from Jessica, who is my colleague. When I worked as a publisher, my colleague Jessica reached out to me. "Hey, how are you doing? How about lunch soon?" We used to go out for drinks after work and spend our days off together when we were single. Now, we both have families, so we don't contact each other as much, but we try to meet at least once or twice a year. Her invitation came at a good time, so I agreed readily. 3 days later in the afternoon, she and I were sitting in a cafe in the next town. So they moved into the care facility, huh? Yeah, both of them in the same place, I replied. She asked how things were going, and I told her about my parents-in-law moving into a nursing home a few months ago. I know I shouldn't say this, but it's a good thing. It must be a relief for you, she said, looking pleased. She'd have been worried about me because I never had time for myself, so it seemed she was relieved now. Well, I do have to get their clothes, visit, and accompany them to their doctor's appointments, but still my life has become a lot easier. This was the first time since I was single that I was able to casually make time to meet with a friend. You're such a dutiful daughter-in-law. Is Brian still hands-off? Yes, he seems to want to do nothing on his days off. He never wanted to go anywhere on his days off. In these 17 years, we've never even gone shopping together. Her husband is diligent. He picks her up in his car when it rains and sometimes even does the shopping for her. He never changed at all. Well, since I am a stay-at-home wife, at least he could take care of his own parents. She has never thought highly of my husband. We both had jobs when we got married, but he never helped with the household chores. There were days when I was too tired to do housework. He found it unbelievable and suggested I become a stay-at-home wife. I didn't want to quit, but I resigned as he suggested and became a full-time homemaker. Soon, I was asked to live with his parents, and I ended up taking care of them. The reason I couldn't talk back to my husband was because of the significant difference in our incomes. He is 7 years older than me. By that time, he already held a position at his company, and his income was more than double mine. Can you earn as much as I do? If you can, I wouldn't mind quitting, he'd say, making me speechless. I discussed my true desires of not wanting to quit my job with her. I even cried on the phone, overwhelmed by having no time for myself. I understand if she holds a negative view of him because of my venting. After a while, the warm vegetable salad we ordered arrived. As she served it on smaller plates, she asked again, "So, how are things with him?" I thought for a while and nodded affirmatively. I'd actually come to discuss our big fight, but I didn't want him to be seen in a worse light. Jessica paused, holding the serving tongs and staring at me, who only managed to nod in response. Trying to keep my smile to not arouse suspicion, she stopped serving the salad midway. "I'm sorry, I asked it the wrong way. Nickel, things aren't going well with him, are they?" she said, as if she knew something. I was left flustered and unable to respond. She started talking about something that had happened a few days ago. That day, she was at a dining bar near her office for a work after party. When she went to use the restroom, she passed a man in the aisle who turned out to be my husband. He didn't seem to recognize her, so she decided against calling out to him. But noticing that he was in casual clothes made her wonder if he was with me. After leaving the restroom, she decided to take a look at where he was seated. She saw him having drinks with a woman who wasn't me. "Then I realized instantly he's cheating on you," she said. They were sitting close together, bodies touching as they drank. Was that really my husband? I couldn't believe it. That day, he hadn't come home due to working overtime, so there was no reason for him to be in casual clothes. Moreover, he seemed genuinely busy lately. Does he even have the time for cheating in his current state? Although we've been on bad terms recently, I can't imagine him resorting to cheating. I just don't see him as that kind of person. Sensing my thoughts, she sighed and added, "For the upcoming long weekend, he mentioned going to a place in Laguna Beach." He was showing information about the accommodations on his phone and mentioned something about a prime-grade steak dinner. You could probably find the hotel if you search from there. She started searching for the hotel on her phone. While at the cafe, I was still hoping